What about joy? That was the original title of this talk. But nobody thought people would realize we were going to talk about money and investing if that was the title. That was a little bit the point. Why is that? Why is there such a disconnect between money and joy? We ended with a title that was a take on the perennial question, can money make you happy? So much time and energy spent on that question. And we flipped it to get to the heart of this talk. Can happy make you money? A way more interesting topic to spend your time on. Can happy make you money? What about joy? And those are the questions we are going to answer today. I have been in the financial services and investment industry for over 20 years, almost 25. Over the course of those years, you could have found me in roles from trader to chief executive officer. I have had the responsibility of managing money for large companies, for institutions, for families, for endowments. As a woman in an industry that has been tough for women, I have to admit that in the early years, I sort of tried to conform, stay inside the box. But that changed. Over the years, the increasing disconnect between the prescribed solutions on what we should do with our money and its lack of impact on human happiness really started to jump off the page at me. It was almost as if the math of finance and the science on human happiness were operating in parallel universes. In the 1990s, Harry Markowitz won a Nobel Prize for his work on portfolio choice, asset selection optimization. The work solved for a smoother ride. By combining many asset classes that were not well correlated, you could get about the same return, a smidge higher, and the ride was somewhat smoother, less volatility. In the decades that followed, the swirl of activity around solving for that question, a smoother ride, got us more and more asset classes, more and more complexity, harder and harder for anyone to understand what was going on, creating more and more anxiety. I think we have been solving for the wrong question, or at a minimum, an incomplete question. The fact is, a smoother ride does not make us happier, and complexity causes anxiety. What if we were to solve for a happier ride? Why does that matter? The journey matters. We have this one little bright, bold, beautiful life. The journey matters. The journey matters for us individually, and the journey matters for us collectively. Happiness brings out the best in us. A little bit of scientific perspective comes from the field of priming effects, which are just exposing participants to certain conditions and seeing if that affects how they answer questions. Participants in a study who were shown images of money, together with participants who were not shown images of money, those participants who were shown images related to money and investing were less likely to ask for help, and they were less likely to give help. And in some studies where the participants were then asked to go into the next room and set up chairs in order to have a conversation and discuss the images that they'd seen, the participants who'd seen images related to money and finance went into that room and they set up the chairs close to 1.5 feet further apart, 1 foot 3 inches. How hard is it to communicate, to build a common understanding about anything when the chairs are that far apart? So how can we come to a solution that bends that curve? The answer begins here. Rather than staying inside our own little discipline and drilling deeper and deeper into that discipline, down to the complex roots to find the answer, look up, look out, look to other disciplines to inform a deeper, richer, more complete answer. So there are hundreds of items in each one of those sets. Enjoy the journey. We could probably all come up with about 1 million items on that set. Quit your job and go hiking in the Swiss Alps. Trouble is, many of those would not overlap with successful investing and solid planning. And investing, hundreds of ways to invest, short-term, long-term, algorithms, hedge funds. The trouble is that many of those approaches do not overlap well with what we know about the science on human happiness. And the science on human happiness, we're learning more and more. Happiness brings us closer together. Happiness makes us think better. We know anxiety is a roadblock to happiness. So how do we get to yes on the question, can happy make us money? After 20 plus years of investment experience, and really more importantly, 20 years of listening carefully to people and listening carefully to what experts outside of my discipline are saying and learning and proving out. I think the most compelling overlaps are simplicity and purpose. Simplicity and purpose enable happiness. Simplicity and purpose are present in people I have met in my professional journey who have really figured out how to enjoy the journey. And simplicity and purpose absolutely work from an investment perspective. So, how does that look from an investment perspective? Let's start with simplicity. It is a passion item of mine. I think Da Vinci spoke a profound truth when he said, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I will tell you a secret. Investing can be simple. In fact, it probably should be simple. My experience has been simplicity improves outcomes. So how do we take that complex mix and boil it down to its essence? Boil it down to its simplest form. We can't cover every element of that in this forum, but let's get to the major building blocks. If we think about the major building blocks, there are really two major jobs going on in that complicated mix. One of them is the job of your safety blanket, and one of them is the job of growth, assets that will grow to help you fulfill your aspirations. Your safety blanket. This is really important. Important to spend time here, maybe the majority of your time. There is no bigger roadblock to happiness than anxiety, and there's no surer way of triggering anxiety than risk that is outside of your tolerance. In the Markowitz model, the safety blanket is the counterbalance to risky assets. We need to spend time here because your perception of your risk tolerance changes over time and over days depending on how you happen to feel on that particular day. Let me give you a framework within which to consider this, and it's just one thing, but a framework to consider. Equity markets correct 30% once every 10 years, and it's normal for an equity market to correct 30% once every 10 years. Think about if you had all of your nest egg exposed to that decline. How would that feel? Could you tolerate it? For some, the answer may be yes. It's not about making everything safe, because growth has a role to fill. We all have aspirations. It's about having enough set aside so that you can tolerate the ups and downs without the ups and downs impinging on every single day. And growth. So growth is where the waters often get muddied with asset classes and international and emerging markets. In order to create some clarity, let's take it up. What is the job of the assets that are supposed to grow? Well, it's to grow. And can we define that? Yes, we can define that quite explicitly. Equities are generally a large part of growth, and using that as a measure, your growth asset should be able to give you 7 to 9% on average per year. Not every year, but over time, on average 7 to 9%. At 7%, your assets will double in 10 years. And I know your next question is, how do I know if something can achieve 7 to 9%? And that is not something that we have enough time to cover in this talk, but I promise you, it is informed by simple things as well. Simple things that we all learned when we ran our first lemonade stand. So make it simple, make it straightforward. Simplicity improves outcomes, and simplicity empowers us. It is the math shaking hands with the science. And purpose. I don't think we need any science for us to know that a sense of meaning and purpose fulfills us. There are hundreds of ways to invest. Let's choose out the ones that have meaning and purpose to us. Think about things you love. Importantly, think about things you understand well. I've had clients for whom real estate was their passion and their way of making a positive impact on the world. I've had clients for whom their business was their sense of fulfillment and also their growth engine. Choose a mixture and give it purpose. The investment industry has told us for decades what should make us happy. Beating indexes, diversification, some distant goal. What does make us happy, the actual science on human happiness, has not really informed the approach. And now it can. Turn the model on its head. Ask a different question. Let simplicity and purpose be your guides. They can improve outcomes and they empower us. And yes, happy can make us money. And with that, maybe we can get those chairs closer together. And who knows what will happen from there.